First up, he is the senior senator from Vermont. He didn't quite make it to the nomination, but in my lifetime, I have never seen a candidate as beloved as Bernie Sanders, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. Well, Bernie, you can see why you weren't the nominee. They hate you. We always have to allow a little more extra time when Bernie is on, just for applause. But I want to ask you, Bernie, how do you rate the convention now that it's over?
Well, I think it was a good convention. I think it brought together people with different points of view within the Democratic Party. The progressives, the more conservatives, the moderates. But I think what comes out of that convention, Bill, is the understanding that Donald Trump is the most dangerous presidential candidate in the modern history of this country, and that he must be defeated.
Yeah,
and I say that, Bill, not just because of his absurd views on so many issues. You know, he believes that climate change is a hoax. He wants to give hundreds of billions of dollars in tax breaks to the top 1%. But above and beyond all of that, this guy is running his entire campaign based on bigotry, based on trying to divide us up, based on trying to insult Mexicans and Latinos and Muslims and women and African Americans. Remember that this guy was one of the leaders of the so-called birther movement, which tried to delegitimize the first African-American president that we have ever had. So this is a guy who is dangerous, who does not, I think that Muslim father of the young man who died in Iraq was absolutely right, that somebody like Trump does not understand the Constitution of the United States. I think you see many Republicans who believe that as well. So this is a guy who must be defeated. It's no secret, Bill, that Hillary Clinton and I have disagreements on a number of issues. And what I intend to do the day after Hillary Clinton is elected President of the United States is to do everything I can to make sure that she goes forward as progressively as she can, maintaining the very strong democratic progressive platform that we passed together.
Well, and I must say, unlike some of your supporters, I think that's why you are a great patriot, because you brought it right back to the central issue. We have to defeat Donald Trump. You are a warrior, sir, and the hardest thing for a warrior to do is to fall on his sword. But you did. You have come in line with the idea that we have just two choices. And, you know, I think of Al Gore after the 2000 election when the Supreme Court made that decision. Donald Trump wouldn't have gone away quietly. Al Gore did the patriotic thing, and you are doing the patriotic thing.
But it's not just, I think, the right thing to do for the moment. I think what we have got to do, and I said this as best I could in Philadelphia, is that we must continue the political revolution. We must continue to bring millions of people into the political process to stand up, to take on the billionaire class, to fight for economic and social and racial and environmental justice. And that fight must continue the day after the election, because fundamental changes, transformational changes, Bill, take time to happen. They don't happen overnight. And that movement has got to continue. And what we are doing, by the way, is converting our movement from a presidential campaign to a movement that tries to activate the American people and get young people to start running for office for school board and city council and state legislature. That is a continuation of the political revolution.
All right, well, Let me follow up on a couple of things you said. You said the movement should continue. You mentioned young people. Now, I was on with Chris Matthews a couple of weeks ago. We were talking about you, and the assumption from him was that you could not run again because you're 74. And I said, Chris, you're 70. I'm 60. If anybody should not be ageist, it's us. I must push back against this idea that people in their 70s are at the end and that you're just dribbling down to the last few days of your life. People treat their bodies differently as they go through life. They are very different in their alertness, in their health, and there is no reason why you can't run again, from what I see. Well, what do you think of that?
Bill, I mean, thank you very much, but it is 4 years from now is a long time off from now. My term ends in 2 years as a U.S. Senator from Vermont, everything being equal. I intend to run for re-election from Vermont, a state that I love very, very much. But what I will tell you is whatever my political future may or may not be, I will be fighting as hard as I can to stand up for a declining middle class, to take on the grotesque levels of income and wealth inequality that we're seeing right now, to demand that the United States join the rest of the industrialized world and guarantee health care to all people as a right, to make public colleges and universities in this country tuition-free. Those are issues that we have got to continue the fight for.
Okay, I didn't hear the end of that because people are always applauding you, but I think I get the gist. All right, so, you know, people were talking today a lot about the fact that at the convention last night when Hillary mentioned you and the night before when Obama gave you a shout out, you didn't look too happy. You know, you kind of didn't crack a smile. You look like a husband who is sitting there in the waiting room, you know, while the wife tries on the clothes. I mean, outside the waiting room, not in the waiting room. But the other moment I saw at the convention, which was the opposite, when your brother came on the stage. Now, when I was talking about you all year, I always said Bernie Sanders is giving us a New Deal. That is the only phrase that comes to mind. He's saying, look, you pay a little more in taxes, but look at what you get, like more like a European democracy. And your brother invoked the New Deal. He talked about your parents and their love of the New Deal and how you were carrying on that tradition. And there, we did see a lot of emotion. You were verklempt, Bernie. Come on. Right? I mean, that got to you.
What my brother reminded me of is how my parents, who died young, might have felt at that moment. And obviously, that was something that was struck a deep chord in me. You know, we grew up in a family, didn't have a whole lot of money. My father dropped out of high school. My mother never went to college. I think the idea that her son might be a serious candidate for president of the United States is nothing that they ever would have dreamed of. So that's what struck a chord in me.
Okay. Well, like I say, Bernie, you're not too old to run again. Think about it. Bernie Sanders, everybody. Thank you, Senator. I appreciate your time.